intuitive viewers. Hello and welcome to Let's Chat on Sunday. I am so excited. Well, I'm excited for a couple things. One, it's Mother's Day. And two, Susan Lynn is here. So Susan, happy Mother's Day. And thank you for taking time out to be here. And I know you were just talking before, you're a fur baby mom. And you were talking, if you could just repeat what you said about moms, which I thought was so true, about the role that women play as mothers kind of to everybody and everything, right?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on your channel. I love what you do. I mean, those orbs, like I'm gobsmacked, speechless about, like I'm a fangirl for real. So for real. But about Mother's Day. So my mom died when I was 7. So my dad never remarried. That was like it for him. He was like, that is it. I mean, he didn't even date that us kids even knew about.
And how old was he, Susan? How old was he?
He's crossed, right? He's crossed as well. Both my parents are crossed, but he was in his early 40s when she died. He was very young.
Wow.
He was 42. So he was very young and a handsome guy. And, so anyway, I was saying to you that my dad in many ways was my mom. And I was saying that in my role as a person who doesn't have physical kids, I don't want to take anything from people that have women that have physical kids, because that's a whole nother thing that I don't know anything about. But from my perspective of not having a mom during all those elementary, make the things for your mom and all of that, I can just say that I also want to honor everybody who's played the role of mother, whether you're a man, whether you're like me, and I don't have kids, but I know that I've played the role of mother for people, for kids, for adults even. I mean, sometimes we just step in and we mother those people, right? I mean, it's such an instinct that I think as we ascend, as we evolve as humans, that this feminine maternal energy is in all of us. It's in men, it's in women. And I think we're going to be better about embracing that, right? And allowing men to have their mothering and having women to be mothering, even if they're not a physical mother. So I just think, whereas I don't want to take anything away from people that have physical children, because that's a bond that cannot ever be changed or erased in any way. But I think there's also a little bit more to it too.
There is, and I'm glad you talk about it as an energy, because I think, like you said, it can apply to men. It can apply to your dad, right? It really, they step into those roles. And I remember a few times when my mom wasn't around and my dad took the role, and it wasn't pretty, was it? But he tried.
It wasn't pretty. God bless him. But I mean, that's what happened. Like my dad got thrown into this situation. He was not maternal. Right. He was very like, I always said he has 10 rules. As long as you just didn't do these 10 rules, you were golden. I mean, you could do a lot of things. We were feral. We were feral. But, like one of his rules was you couldn't ride on the handlebars of somebody else's bike. So, if my dad would come home every night at 5:30, you could set your watch to it. And I didn't have a watch. I was a kid. I would literally just dive off. I would risk a concussion rather than have my dad see me. You know what I mean? But it was just one of his 10. He was a very simple person.
Well, and that's profound. I mean, that could be on multi levels, riding on someone else's handlebars. That's, getting in their way, not letting them see
don't be an idiot. Yeah. Don't be an idiot. Right. So anyway, so it was fun. It was interesting. And it's what I needed. I needed that real structure. Right. So in a way, I think he really worried about not being a mother. You know what I mean? He really did. Yeah. That was a concern he had even towards the end of it. He lived till he was 86, never married from 40 something years of his life. Right. So I think that is a concern he had. Did I screw this up? Right. Like, should I have gotten remarried? Like, you know what I mean? So, it's just an interesting day to be thinking about all the permutations of mothering.
And I found, just as being a parent, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's your intention, what's in your heart. And it sounded like your dad, he really, whether he did the right thing or the wrong thing, he really, really tried. And it was in he really wanted to do the best he could.
He did. I had a great relationship with my dad. He wasn't perfect, but we were very close. So yeah.
That's great. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Susan Lynn, maybe you've never seen her channel. It's amazing. So much politics, so much information. But let me tell you just a little brief background about Susan Lynn. So Susan Lynn's a psychic medium and has had experiences with spirit since she was a child. And after shutting her gifts down, the death of a friend helped her to reopen and begin using her gifts. Susan Lynn has been actively honing her gifts since 2012, and she currently works as a psychic medium and communicates vital messages to clients' loved ones through offering healing and comfort. And through her, Susan Lynn's guides offer insights on life choices, including job decisions, relationships, as well as warnings and guidance of future issues. And she is the host and founder of the YouTube channel Susan Lynn, where she gives predictions to navigate politics and current affairs and spiritual lessons to help others grow their own abilities. Do you recognize yourself in that description?
I was wondering why chocolate and cheese are not included in that description.
And she loves chocolate and cheese.
So much grief about that. I thought, God, I can't really be eating that much cheese. But yeah, they are very active with me.
Yeah, and so go back to having these experiences as a child, and can you just kind of tell us what it was like to have that door opened before you even kind of knew what was even happening?
Right. I think this is so important. I personally think all of us have had, or not, maybe not all, but the majority of people watching this video anyway, have had experiences when they were a child. And that colors your, like a lot of people say, I don't like ghosts. I refuse, or I don't want to be a medium because I don't want to talk to people. That indicates to me that you had some kind of experience as a child that there wouldn't be any reason for you to not to feel so strongly about something if you didn't have a negative experience. And we often have these experiences and then we shut them down. We forget about them. Right. So for me, I didn't forget about them, unfortunately. So, and I think when you have a childhood like mine that was traumatic, when you lose your mother at the age of 7, that's a lot going on, right? I had one younger sister and 4 older siblings who are way older than me. So it was me and my sister who were pretty close, right, in age and everything. And I just recall at night seeing eyes in the dark, this red eyes staring at me. There was just a lot of things that happened at night and that were terrifying to me. And, you know, I mean, I was born in 1965. It's a little bit different era where kids, you know, are not to be heard, not to be, you know, you didn't talk back. You know, if somebody said, get in your bed and shut up, that's basically what you needed to do. So you were just kind of tough. I was toughing it out on my own in there. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God. So unfortunately for me, and it really could be because I was viewing these non-physical energies through the eyes of trauma, right, that they were traumatizing, right? Like I've had a breakthrough recently where I in a meditation where I found out that some of these beings were actually there to help me, but they didn't look like grandma, you know, they didn't look like the fairy godmother, right? Like, so why they couldn't show up like that, I don't know, but they didn't. I just saw, you know, these things that looked scary to me. And so that was sort of like the beginning. And then in my family, it was kind of odd because my dad was so black and white, right? He was so black and white, but at the same time, he was a jokester. And I was his main target because I was so earnest as a kid that he could say anything. And I would really just take him at his word for it. I mean, I would just believe it. I'm like, I got too much to worry about it. Dad says the sky is, you know, polka dots. I'm just going to go with that. Right. Like, so, even though my dad was a jokester and black and white kind of guy, which made it very confusing for this earnest little girl, he would say things like, you know, there's a ghost in the basement. And honestly, he wasn't kidding, you know? And even at some point, I recall him saying that he kept the same bedroom that him and mom had. And I remember distinctly him coming out in the morning for breakfast. Like I'm an early riser. He's an early riser. We both, you know, like breakfast. And he was sitting at the table and he told me the bed had an impression in it next to me, and no one was in the room. No one was in my bed, but there was a depression in the bed next to me. And I think it was your mother. And I'm like, and I think I was like 10. And I'm like, what do I do with
Oh,
this
wow.
information? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what does that mean? You know, and he wouldn't talk anymore about it. That was the other thing, right? Like, that made it complicated growing up was that my dad was so heartbroken by my mom's death that literally he refused to talk about her. I mean,
Right.
literally, he would not even tell you this is her favorite dish. This was her favorite color. It was like she was gone. So for him to say something like that when you're just, wanting to hear anything at all about your mom, like ears, like please, so whenever he would say something about mom, we would all be like, and then to hear that she's not there, but she is there, but she made an impression. And it's from this big man who's just like can do anything, like it was very confusing, right? So I caught on to that though, and I tried to use the ghost thing. Like I tried to say the ghost broke the lamp. It didn't work. It never worked for me. I never got it to work. I totally did not believe that. And honestly, we all used it. We were like the ghost, that chair on the couch. That's ghost right there. That's big time ghost activity. I mean, this man should have got a prize for like raising these kids because I swear we were feral. So anyway, that's kind of how my childhood went, right? Like, so that's basically the beginning of it all.
Well, it sounds like your dad's like agenda with not really talking about it at all is that I think an agenda we all have as parents, which is just put one foot in front of the other, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, and just wanting to kind of move on or move, keep going. But you can, I mean, I can, yeah, that's would be a very also an early. I was the same way. We have a really big family. We have I was raised in the Mormon church, so and in the Mormon church we have what's called a viewing of the body before they're buried. And so all the family goes and looks at the bodies and take pictures of the body. It's kind of an old pioneering kind of thing that they do. They still do it. And so when you have an early introduction to death, it can be a positive and a negative, right? You kind of appreciate things in a different way, and that you realize, oh, things can be gone all of a sudden. But it's also very concerning, because it's kind of like, but then where did they go is kind of the next thing. So I completely understand that kind of trying to hold two things in your head at once, especially as a child. And then you said in 2012 you're a death of a friend kind of reopened the gifts. And I wanted to ask you about that specifically, but also why you think death is that. It was the same for me, and I know lots of other psychics or mediums. It's the death of someone who they're very close to, that kind of boom. I always think of it as they leave a door open as they leave, but what was your experience with that?
Yeah, I like the way you say that they leave a door open when they leave, because they have this heart connection to you, right? And so when they leave and they leave the door open, it's just more accessible, right? So yeah, it's very interesting because and this probably happened to you. I think this happens to a lot of us in that you don't realize you're psychic, or you don't realize, like I didn't realize I was psychic. I knew I could see ghosts, but I didn't think that was anything to write home about. So my friends knew I could see ghosts and talk to ghosts, but it was like, it wasn't a big deal or whatever. And so this one friend, Paula, she, right around that time, 2011, 2012, it was a lot of people were awakening, and this stuff was all becoming more popular. And she was so into it. She was taking classes, and she was just really, really intrigued by all of it, like the entire meta universe of ghosts and aliens and everything you can imagine. So she started eyeballing me. We were like sisters, like we could fight, and we could we could fight with each other, but we wouldn't let anybody else, right? Like, say anything. So she started saying, Susan, you have this ability. And I'm like, I told you, I nailed it shut. This is really and truly what I pictured, because I'm very visual, is like nailing wood on all the windows, like boarding up a house. That's basically my internal viewpoint of my subconscious access. I boarded up all the windows and the doors, because as a kid, you don't understand boundaries. You don't understand any of that. And you don't understand you can tell them not to bother you, or even that you can bring in angels. There was just none of that information for me. So the only thing I knew to do was to cut it off. So she started really badgering me. And one time, it's really funny. And she was a really funny woman anyway. And she walks into my house as she plops herself down on the couch. She just looks so disgusted at me. And she goes, I've been trying to break into your head for an hour and a half. I even got the instructor to try to break into your head. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I was trying to read your mind. I'm like, why are you trying to read my mind? I mean, my mind is my mind. Hello. You got like strangers in there. I told you I boarded it all up. I mean, she was so upset that she couldn't crack my brain. I was like, oh my God, what are they teaching you? You just read people's brains. You know what I mean? She's like, well, you're like family. I'm like, obviously not that kind of family. So anyway, but she really, I mean, she would leave me CDs on, different people talking about it, or books, like it was constant. And when she crossed over, it wasn't immediately, but I would say within a year. I mean, when she crossed over, I had some pretty profound experiences, but within a year is when I started to have like this point where you realize, I have an indelicate term for it, and I know that I'm on a very nice channel, so I'm gonna try not to sully your place up, but it's like psychic, uncontrollable psychic things that start coming out of your mouth. You know what I mean? Like, I was a photographer for 23 years, so I'm over here photographing a high school senior, and I'm like, I've got the camera in front of my face. And I say, oh, you're going into the Navy. And I can see their expression through the viewfinder that's like, bug-eyed. And they're like, wait, do you know the recruiter? Do you know the coach? I mean, like, what? How did my parents don't know? And I'm like, I had to make up something, right? I had to literally make up a lie to get out of it. And so after she crossed over, this is when these things started happening. Like, they were out of my control. The boards that I'd put on the windows started to fall down, and stuff was getting through.
When you have, and just to zero in on something you just said about being a photographer, looking at a high school senior and knowing that they want to go into the Navy, can you explain to people what that process is, or what it feels like when it comes into your into your energy, for you to be able to read it? What does it feel like?
So maybe people are familiar with the psychic clairs, the different ways that we get psychic information. And I always tell you guys that it can change, right? Like, just because you're getting it one way next week, next month, next year, you can get it another way. In that situation, I'm very claircognizant. So I get thoughts and that's the trickiest one, in my opinion, because I always tell people, like, if you see something out of the corner of your eye and you look, you saw something. I mean, whether it's there or not, your body, your brain, your eyeballs thought it saw something. So it's pretty easy to acknowledge. Didn't I just see something? So you can acknowledge that. But claircognizance comes in through your brain, and it gets mixed up with your own thoughts. You don't even realize you're getting guidance. I mean, you think it's you. A lot of us have been getting psychic help our whole lives and have no earthly idea that it's been happening. So when I was photographing that senior, I just had the thought, I mean, I'm on autopilot, right? That's another reason why that stuff sneaks in, right? Like, I'm not thinking when I'm creating, when you guys are painting, even if you're washing the car, your mind can wander, right? So when I was photographing, my mind would be on somewhere else, because I was in this creative zone. And that's a really a really common time to get
Mhm.
that kind of psychic information. So for me, that time it came claircognizantly. So psychic knowing, you know it, you don't know how you know it.
Right. I wanted to get into something. I thought it was brilliant what you said, but I'm gonna come back to that because I wanted to really dig into a little bit the relationship you have with your guides, because you have such a unique. It seems effortless. The connection you have with your guides and the way they speak to you and the way you respond. And can you tell us more about how you develop that relationship, and also what role you think guides play in everybody's life?
Nice. That's so nice. I sure can tell you that. So for me, and I think this is a common theme throughout our community, is you ask, you have a need, right? Like you're like, oh my gosh, please help me, please, 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 right? If things are going well in your life, you're not asking for any help. You're cruising along. You don't even realize the days and the months and the years are going by. But when you have something bad happen in your life, you're like, I really need help. Like I really need help, right? So for me, my friend died. That was a seminal event in my life. And then I went through a breakup, and then of a 20-year relationship, which was kind of like I managed to do that. I mean, after my friend died, like anything paled in comparison to that. So it was
Right,
like, okay, I
right.
can handle that. But then the
Yeah,
next relationship I got into was one of those toxic kind of head weird gas, like you don't even know if you're coming or going. I mean, you're just like, you're not yourself, and you're like, what is going on here? And
yeah.
so a couple of things happened. The first thing happened is I asked my spirit, I just asked for help. I didn't even know who to ask. Now, again, remember my friend had died. So I'd started to kind of dabble. I had done, by that time, maybe I had done 5 readings of friends, right, for their
Mhm.
loved ones. And I was starting to really believe this mediumship stuff. I was starting to
Right.
believe that I could talk to people that crossed over. I was like, whoa, this is trippy, man. I don't know. I was also kind of experimenting with automatic writing. Okay. And so all these things were kind of going on in the background. I'm in this bad relationship. I'm asking for help. Right. So I got out of that relationship with the help of the spirit guides. And it's a really funny story because I was doing automatic writing. Right. So I was kind of doing this thing where you write a letter to your spirit guides,
Mhm.
and if anybody's ever tried it, you can just write a letter, just say, hey, what's up? I need some help or whatever. So I wrote this letter that was like, so this is an important part too. It was very heartfelt.
Right.
It wasn't coming from my brain. It was coming from me. Like, I don't know why I cannot get out of this relationship. This is so not me. And it wasn't abusive, but it was just mentally and emotionally abusive, right?
Toxic. Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
toxic, just
Yeah.
like, and one of those darn karma things that you're like, it's just
Mhm.
like, you just can't quite help yourself. So I was like, I need help. Like, really, I need help. Guess what happened? I left that document on the computer. It was my work computer, which was never used. I was a photographer. So I had all this special software and stuff. Nobody ever used my computer. They sat down on my computer and hit the keyboard. Boom, that letter was on the screen. Guess what? I got out of that relationship like 2 days later. So
Wow. Oh
that
my
that
gosh.
was the first thing. Then so that was me, right? Communicating
Right.
with spirit guides, and it wasn't lost on me that nobody went in that room, nobody ever used that computer. I mean that why would that document pop up? None of that was lost on me. I was starting to
Right.
connect the dots. Okay. Now, here's the important thing to happen. This is, in my opinion, this is the most important thing to happen besides asking for help. The second thing was, well, now I'm living by myself. And I decided, don't ask me why. That's another one of those clues when you say, don't ask me why I decided to do this. You can almost always just fill in spirit guides.
Right.
I
Right.
decided I had some time off, or it was a slow time or something. I decided that I was going to paint the entire living room by myself. And I'm just, once you start, you can't stop. I mean, you're
Yes.
committed. This is a commitment. I'm, I'm like rolling. I swear it felt like hours a day, like just rolling. And while I'm rolling, I'm talking to myself. I can't believe I let that happen. And I'm a Virgo, so I'm like critical. I'm like, rah, 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 rah. Susan, when are you gonna learn better? I guess you should learn your lesson. I mean, I'm rolling like furiously. I mean, it was not a good paint job. But anyway, I started noticing that I was getting answers. And you do this. Like I thought, okay, I've finally I've gone around the bend. You know what I mean? Like I've finally cracked up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and I would tell you guys, no spirit guide is ever going to tell you to do anything negative or anything bad or even talk to you badly. They're never going to say a bad thing about you. They're never going to tell you to do something harmful. So please understand that that's not what I'm talking about here. They just started answering me. And then of course, if you know me, and I don't see myself this way, but apparently a lot of you do, because this is what I really like. I started arguing with them. I'm like, well, if that's the case, so I'm talking to them while I'm rolling this whole freaking living room. And it's even then, you guys, it didn't dawn on me what was happening. Like I really thought I was having a conversation with myself, which is, you know, we do, right?
Right.
And then what really flipped the switch was when something they said to me helped me understand that I was the only one that was going to save me. There wasn't, I often tell everybody, there's no line of cheerleaders or, you know, like that. You've got to do it, right? You've got to love yourself. You've got to raise your own vibration. You have to be the one in your own head that says the nice things, that says, instead of Susan, how could you make that stupid mistake? Blah, blah, blah. You say, Susan, that's a mistake. There ain't no doubt about that. That was a doozy, girl. That was a mistake. Luckily, you know how to fix these mistakes because you make them often and you're a pro. So let's just fix it. So that's how I changed. I literally changed how I talk to myself, right? And that raised my vibration. And as I was raising my vibration and I started meditating, I started really because really this relationship showed me that I don't want that, right? I don't want that toxic, I don't want that low vibration. I had a really good alternative to look at. And I said, I don't want any of that. I want to love myself. I want to take care of myself. I want to eat better. I want to get more exercise. I want to do fun things. I want to be gentle and kind to myself. Once I started doing that, my vibration obviously, right, got higher. And the way I see it is our spirit guides love us unconditionally. And when we're negative to ourselves, it's a little bit harder to connect with them. It's not possible, but it's just a little harder, right? Because you can't even see their guidance, because their guidance is, you can do it. You can get the new job. You can get the new relationship. You can lose the weight. You can get healthy again. That's their guidance. And we're like, that's not gonna happen.
So be down on me.
Yeah, then we don't get the guidance, right? So raising my vibration really helped me start to believe. Now, I say all that, but I got to say, the last 3 years of my life have been the hardest in a lot of the most gratifying, for sure, but the hardest leaps of faith that I've ever taken in my whole life, as far as believing in myself, right? So, so, you know, and they can't bring it. You can't accept the gift until you're willing to accept the gift. You know, we're asking for the gift. We're asking for those things, right? But do you really believe you're worthy of it? Because if you don't, if something deep hidden in here believes that you're really not worthy of it, then you're not going to be resonant. You're not going to be vibrationally matched with that. And even me, I still do it. I'm doing it right now, right this very minute. The spirit guides have this thing in mind for me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Let me walk around. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to walk around. I'll be okay. Let me just like, woo. Okay. So I'm turning red right now. You're just thinking about it. I'm like, no, I'm going to make it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be okay. But I just want everybody to know it's not easy. People think I make it look easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. Human is complicated.
And you do make, I think that's, I mean, I want to echo that from people in the chat and probably people in your own community that you talk to all the time, that you do make it look effortless. You really do. And I think that's a testament too, though, to the trust you have with your guides. And could you talk a little bit about about that role of trust and what that plays in that relationship, because I think it would, and also on the back of that, would you say that that is one of the number one things that blocks everybody from their guides or blocks everybody from their guidance?
Yeah, I think it is trust. It is interesting because in this journey to get to where I'm at now, talking to you on YouTube, um, there are lower vibrational energies, right? That can just play with you, trick you, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so that was
Mhm.
something I had to get through. Again, if you raise your vibration and you make it, and you have daily spiritual hygiene, right? Like, I'm not good at that because I kind of came out of it at this a whole different way than a lot of people. So, like, what I would say too is, if you're born open, quote unquote open, they say, right?
Mhm.
You're going to spend your life learning how to close it. Like,
Mhm.
why is the light on 24/7? I'm trying to sleep, right? You are looking for the light to turn it off. A lot of people are looking for the light to turn it on.
Mhm.
So for me, it's on like 24/7. And for me, that presented unique challenges that once I started connecting, I kind of got wrapped up into some kind of lesser energy. Now, how do you deal with that? As you raise your vibration, you have daily spiritual practice. If you say a little prayer every day, if you light a candle and just spend 3 minutes looking at it, if you listen to something that's uplifting, if you burn sage, whatever, it could be anything, right? You're basically just every day saying, I'm aligning myself with the light. I'm
Mhm.
aligning myself with the light. And not to say that we would ever align ourselves with the dark, that we wouldn't, but life is dark. Life is traumatic. You know, we're mad, we're angry, we're tired, we're sick. And then our vibration starts to get lower, right? So the first thing is really monitor your vibration. Monitor your self-talk. Are you being kind and gentle and loving to yourself, right? And really pump up your vibration as much as you can. And then for me, um, I think no matter, and this is very true for me, it is hard for me to read myself. Okay.
Mhm.
So if I'm like, here's an interesting story that I wanted to do a video on, because this is the kind of thing that it confounds me. And I think it confounds everybody. And it's complicated. But here's the thing, my dog has a very sensitive stomach. I mean, like super sensitive. And the older she gets, the more sensitive it gets. And I've gotten to the point where I can go to the pet store and pick up a bag of food and go yes or no. And
Mhm.
I suggest you guys all do that. It's fun. Just go to the frozen food section and pick out something that you don't normally eat, a brand or something, and say, would I like this? And if you feel, and it could be subtle at first, right? But if you feel yes, like you could even use muscle testing. Am I leaning forward? Am I leaning back? You could hold it. You could, however, just play with it. Take it home and cook it. And if you don't like it, then you're going to have a beef with somebody, right? But anyway, but anyway, with my dog, this was what was so confounding. I finally found this food. I'm like, okay, now I had bought some raw food that was in the freezer, but because it's in the freezer, I never think of it because I've never fed her raw food before. So I never ever think about food in the freezer for my dog. I went to the
Mhm.
pet store. I bought expensive pet food. It said yes. I brought it home, gave it to her for a week, just knowing, with that knowing, right, that I have, because I talked to my spirit guides. This is it. This is going to fix her problem. She got more sick. She got so sick, I was actually on the verge of taking her to the vet. And I was like, okay, what's up? You know, like, I know I got a yes. I know what a yes is. I've done this long enough that I'm really
Right.
familiar with a yes. And
Yeah.
I thought, what has happened here? Right? Like, what did I get wrong? Or how could I have gotten this wrong? So the confounding thing is, they switched clairs, right? So I'm telling you, I'm claircognizant. I get thoughts, but then I saw a picture of that food in the freezer. And I wasn't paying attention because I was mad.
Right.
And
Right.
but like, you kind of like, you're on autopilot. When you're guided, you're on autopilot. I promise you. Autopilot, I'm going to the freezer. I'm getting the food out of the freezer. I'm putting it on the counter before I really come to the fact that I'm doing that. I open it up and I go, I don't even know how much to feed her. I don't know anything about this. And I'm like putting it in her bowl. I'm telling you, within 24 hours, that dog was back to normal. 2 feedings, that dog was completely back to normal. Now, why did they tell me to buy the bad food? Why did they tell me to do this? Is where everybody gets tripped up and people come at me and they're like, Susan, I get it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm open to your interpretation.
Yeah.
1000%. I feel like I couldn't look, I'd already bought the food. It was at home. I wasn't getting that message. I just wasn't connecting to that message in my thinking brain. This is what I'm saying. Getting guidance for yourself is much more difficult.
Right.
In my thinking brain, I'm thinking, this is what I fed all my dogs. I've had dogs my whole life, is dry food and wet food. I'm raw's is not even a thing.
Right.
So I bought this food. And what was funny is I picked up some food and I got the worst no, then I threw it. It was like, wow. God, so I even had like a no that I could compare to the yes. I feel like the reason they did that was to show me, to make me stop and ask the question, why is this the wrong food? I got a no, I got a yes, I bought the yes. What is going on?
Right. Right. And I also think that, and I agree with that interpretation, especially in that circumstance. And I also think that sometimes guides give you well, how do I put this? When you're stuck on something, and for example, if somebody's like, I really, really want to open an Airbnb. I just know that's my thing. I know that's what I want to do, and they're just stuck on it. And their guides say, yeah, go ahead. And then it's a big flop. Sometimes I feel like they go ahead and urge you to do things that you're stuck on so you can move past it. Yes. And it doesn't, it's almost like it doesn't even matter. It's just get it out of your system so we can move on to the real thing you're supposed to be doing, right?
I swear to God. That's where people get tripped up, because they're like, but if my guides love me unconditionally, why would they say yes to something that was going to be a problem for me? Right. Well, they love you unconditionally, like parents do. Parents love you. Mother's Day, right? I mean, how many of us got pushed on a bike and off we rode? I mean, back in the day, without helmets, without anything, and sometimes on our older siblings, like where the ground was like 3 feet away, like you couldn't touch the pedals. You know what I mean? Like, what is that? Is that a terrible parenting, or is you're going to have to do it? You're going to have to just do it to learn it.
Yeah.
And I'll be there with the Band-Aid if you need it.
Right. And it's also their way of knowing you too, inside and out. Okay, she's not going to get off of this until she does it and it's done, and then she can move on, right?
That's true. They know you so well.
I don't want to make people jealous, but last year I got to meet Susan Lynn in person, because we both taught at a retreat, and we did like a little presentation at a retreat. And I was blown away. And it was one of those moments that it really did change the way I thought about my own relationship with my guides, because I was there. Debbie and I were teaching together, and we had our little notes, and we talked about how we're going to do things, and we had everything set the way we had them set. And I was standing in the back with Susan Lynn, watching whoever was presenting at the time. And I said, so are you all ready to go with your presentation? And you're like, yeah, I think I'm good. And I said, well, oh, well, do you feel like you're all prepared? And you're like, well, I'm just going to wing it. And I was like, I wanted to say, what the fuck? What?
You should have pulled me back into the back and been like, are you okay? Or you got a fever? And
I was just like, have you done this before? And you're like, no, not really. But I feel like my guides have got me, and I feel like it's fine. It's going to be good. And I said, well, I think that's great. And in my mind, I'm thinking,
that poor girl's going to her slaughter.
What is going on? So I just thought, well, if she trusts it, I have no say. I've got to trust it too. So you walked up there, and I am telling you, it was the most amazing, flawless experience I have ever. I mean, you hit every single thing that maybe someone was wondering about or thinking about, and this flow that you had with your guides, it really made me check in with what my trust level is with my guides. Do I trust them completely? And do I trust them to get me from A to Z? And at the time, I have to say, I was kind of like, sometimes I do, but sometimes I know better. And I think I can, it was that kind of, and I still don't listen to them all the time. I mean, I want people to know that is normal. That's your human self. You have to honor that. You're here to make mistakes and learn and grow. And that's just the way it is. So it's just the way it is. But I really was so blown away by that. So I just wanted to let people know that this trust you have with your guides, it's real. It really is real. And you really do feel like they have your back, especially in maybe vulnerable situations where you feel like, I don't know what I'm going to do. They're like, it's okay. We got it. But that was really impressive, Susan, I have to say.
Well, thank you so much, because as a Virgo, I hate to keep harping on this, but I mean, I wanted to have like 17 lists and and practice it. You know what I mean? Like it would have actually made me feel better, right? To practice it and talk it out and all those things, right? And feel really prepared. But you're right. They just said, you're just going to go do this. You're just going to get up there and you're going to do it. And it was a trust fall. It was the first time I've ever had a microphone in my life.
Oh my gosh.
It was a big trust fall for me. It was a big deal. And I find that when you have these trust falls with your spirit guides and the guidance, you get more guidance, you get better guidance, you get clearer guidance. But also we can talk about the times when they kind of set you up for that lesson, right? Like a lot of people. And I remember, I don't know if you've ever been mad at your spirit guides, but I remember being mad because I said, you set me up for this relationship. And I don't really like that. Right. But that relationship was the reason I'm here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they knew that, like you said earlier, they know you, they know the you that you were before you incarnated into this life, the you that you've been through all your incarnations, So it's hard to get mad at them when you realize that this is all for your own good. Now I would just say this, because I get a lot of pushback. I lost my mom at 7, right? Like, how is that good? Like, I can get in there with you. I understand people have had terrible losses. I've lost a lot of my family. It is hard to wrap your head around. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. It is hard to wrap your head around what I could have wanted to learn with that, right? So I'm not saying I have all the answers or that life is beautiful and full of rainbows and butterflies, because it's really not. But I think that when you're on your soul path, it's full of more rainbows and butterflies. And it certainly is easier.
I completely agree with that. And it's also, I have found that, and again, I think guides know, usually we don't have our biggest jumps in growth through happy, fun times. It's always through the misery, right? It's always through the struggle. It's always through the loss. It's always through those periods where we hit some kind of arc where we really just take a leap. And I always think that, when we have those moments of why is this happening, you can best believe that it's usually because you're due for another leap in your growth, in your abilities, in your faith. You're due for some kind of jump. And in between that is very messy, right? It's that dark night of the soul and the what is going on and why am I even here and what all of those things that happen. But when you reach that crack where the light comes in, and that's that grace that grabs you, and there you are. And it's like, of course, this is why this happened. Of course, now, and it takes a lot of, like I said, it's kind of messy and it takes time to see it, but it's always there. I find it is always, always there.
It's unconditional love.
Yeah, it really, really is. And, as a reader, I really want to ask you, and again, I think it's important for people to know, because there are, as a reader, you always feel like you have these certain things that you can do or certain modes you can jump into that are really easy. That they're kind of second nature. For me, mine is head tapping people, feeling people's like emotions and their motivations and things like that. So for politics, that comes in really handy. And then also orb work, communicating with orbs and dealing with orbs. My not so hot areas that I always feel a little. I literally lean on my guides for every single little thing is medical stuff, sciencey stuff, because I'm not scientifically minded at all. Yeah. Alien things, anything to do with the stars and astrology and things, that kind of stuff, I will answer it, but I am leaning 100% because it just doesn't come as naturally to me, I think. What are yours? What are your real strengths where you feel like I always seem to be able just to plug in somehow? And what are the ones that are more challenging?
That is so fascinating. That's a great question. For me, I really lean on my spirit guides. I mean, I channel. I just channel. I just become the vessel. So that's the easiest thing for me to do. So I would just say in general, like psychic readings are so easy for me to do. What I find daunting and really difficult and just like I'm hanging on by a thread and I would have already quit it had my guides not, encouraged me, let's just say, to continue to do it in some way is mediumship. Surprisingly, right? Like,
really?
Mediumship is difficult for me for so many reasons. First of all, it's like death. Like, I don't get it. Like somebody who planned this, me, thought that it would be a good idea to have death, at an early age, an important figure in your life, and then to speak to dead people for a living. It's like, this isn't a good idea. So that's kind of the thing. And then the other thing is, right, when you do mediumship, it's a lot about boundaries because you're talking to somebody who's crossed over. They may need to say something or some information might need. I just find myself in between two real people a lot of times. And that's uncomfortable for me. Like, I don't want to be in between people. Like, so that whole thing is really challenging to me. And, and another weird thing that kept happening to me, kind of still is happening to me, is whoever I'm either friends with or dating wants to go see a famous medium. Like Teresa Caputo, John Edwards. I mean, I'm like, I just don't have any desire, but I swear to God, every time they come to town, if I'm not dating my friend, we went to go see John Edwards. I'm like, do you know who that is? I've known you for 25 years. You've never mentioned John Edwards. She's like, yeah, I want to go and we're going to sit in the front row. I said, we're going to sit in the where? We're going to do the what? And I'm like sitting in the front. I'm like this. I'm like trying to get small. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm in the front row. And what happened for me was similar to you, right? Like when we were at that event, like I saw John Edward open up and trust.
Yeah.
Like an airplane hangar. Like that man didn't open a door. He opened an airplane hangar. I was like, oh, he's crazy. Look what he's opening up. He's, y'all block. I was like, oh my God, this is what it's like. This is what it's like to literally trust and be open. I mean, open. Like I got taken to school, to church, everything that day. It was absolutely mind-blowing. Because I could see it both ways, like from like if I didn't get a reading, but like I could see it from a person getting a reading, but I could also see it from a medium. So I was like, I was just gobsmacked the whole time. So it was very interesting.
Neat. Yeah. That's amazing. One of the profound experience I had was going to see a famous medium who was, oh gosh, I can never remember her name, but the show Medium was based on her, and I can't think of her name, but she does a lot of police work, but it was really a marvel to watch, and really just so fascinating. And so I also really understood why it's even available to us is because it is such a healer. It is that thing that some people really, really need to pass over into a different area of grief, and just knowing, okay, my loved one's okay. Now I can kind of start to heal or to move on or whatever. It really is such a healer. So I'm with you with that. Now, I know people are I'm going to go to the chat right after this, because I know people will have some questions for you, but I appreciate everybody being here. And I also want to give a shout out to these lovely community members that just jump in and start doing the greeting and the kind of taking care of all of the secretarial work that has to be done, and they just jump right in. And so just thank you for all the monitors that are monitoring everything and just do it just because they just are sweet, lovely people. But thank you so much.
I agree.
So I know there are a couple of things that people want me to ask you about. One is the world right now, right? The world is in a major amount of flux, and you grew up in a similar period of time, especially as a young person. And I remember, the 70s, we were, the early 70s, we were in a war. We had Watergate. The Middle East was going crazy. We had things happening. But now it's like we have a president with 10 trials. We have several wars going on that are all kind of involve the United States in some way. It's just so much energetically chaotic. What do you think is happening? And what do you think we should be learning right now?
Wow. Thankfully, my spirit guides are on board, because that's a very big, it's a big question, right? I mean,
fix the world right now, Susan Lynn, please.
But you know what I think it is? What they just said is the wound, right? It's our wound. It's our Chiron. If you're an astrologer person, it's our, we're moving into this divine feminine. We started off the program by talking about motherhood and what does that mean? And do you have to be a female? And we really talked about how that feminine energy is going to be bubbling up in everybody and really bubbling up in our culture and in our society. And I think this is worldwide. I mean, you see this in Iran with a lot of the women protesting. I just feel like in general, women and the people that support them, I mean, that's a big tent. They're going to be, and with abortion, right? I mean, that's just one thing, but it seems to be the hot button. So what I feel like is happening is we're getting, I mean, are we not really getting a chance to see what's broken? We thought all these things were laws and they're not really laws. And we thought our justice system was fair and it's maybe not so fair. And so we're really seeing the underbelly. We're, the scenario, and this is also not a pretty scenario, but this is probably something that must have been happened in my childhood in the basement or something. But you turn the light on and you see roaches and you're like, ah, and you run back upstairs and you're like, forget that, I'm never going down there again. Forget the roach that lives there. There's roaches down there, right? So this is what they're saying about us, right? We're seeing the ugliness. We really are. We got a real big face full of ugliness. Are we who we thought we were? We thought we were nice people. We thought we were people that were not judgmental or racist or we thought these things. We thought Americans was apple pie and gosh darn it, maybe we're not. So now we're getting a chance to see all that. And then we're going to get a chance to rebuild it. Because the guides told me last year, dissolution. I had no idea what they were talking about. Dissolving, dissolution. And they often said, what will the humans choose? And that would make us all mad because like we're choosing, it's just not working, right? We have gerrymandered voting districts. If you're a brown, if you're any other color than white, you don't have a voice. I mean, it's like for someone to just simply say what we choose can be a little bit infuriating, right? But as we get through this, and I really think that spirit is helping us. You can't make it up that some of these things happen, that Trump is his own worst enemy, that he says things that make it worse for himself. I mean, look at E. Jean Carroll. The man could have been out of there with a $500 million fine or whatever it was. And I mean, or whatever it was a pittance compared to what it ended up being because he was his own worst enemy. So I just feel like spirit is helping us. Like we talked about earlier, like they're going to speed it up so that you get into this jam.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
learn the lesson. They're helping us learn this lesson. Now, I personally have a lot of hope for the future. I mean, I feel like, you know, it's not going to be easy. I don't want to say it's going to be easy. It's never easy rebuilding. I mean, my gosh, you know, if everything that you thought was the foundation of what you thought it was, and then you find out that the foundation's bad and your house fell down, now you got to clear it, and you got to get some more materials, and you got to find some more people, and you got to find people that want to help you build the house that you think you want to build, but they want to build a different, you know what I mean? It's going to be complicated. But overall, I feel like the youth and women are going to step more into their power, and that's going to challenge some of these power, you know, plays and these power structures that have been in power since the inception of our country. But um, I just see us, I see us going into a better time. You know, I really do. I really have a lot of hope for everything. I'm not that pessimistic about that things aren't working or the trials aren't working. That doesn't feel true to me.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think that this is a, I mean, what we've been through, right? You even forget about the worldwide pandemic we went through with everything else going on, but we did that too. And I think you're right. I think we're moving into, and like we were saying earlier, we don't usually grow and move and change through happy, fun times. We grow and move and change through difficult, seeing the flaws, seeing the problems, and having to move into action. And we have to see it first, right? Otherwise, what are we fixing if we don't even know that it's broken? But you're right. I mean, this stuff has just been on double time. Look, the Supreme Court's messed up now, and look, this is over here, and these judges don't really care, and all of it. It's all just like boom, 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 hitting us in the face. And you're right. I think my guides, it was this even before the pandemic. They were calling it the Great Unearthing. That everything was going to be unearthed. Everything was going to come out and be seen for what it is. And then the beginning of this year, when I did my 2024 predictions, it was like the time has come that people are going to have to make a choice. And that it's going to become so obvious what the right choice is with all these different things. I think of Christy Nome and things like that are going to be happening, that are going to be screaming out to us. That's not the way you want to go, because that's just more difficulty and more muck and more stuff you don't want to get into. And it's going to become very obvious. And with all of that said, do you feel like we are headed into a massive shift in consciousness? The 5D, the kind of whatever it is, the beautiful horizon after the storm. Is that what you think is coming?
I do, but I really think we have a year or two maybe of restructuring and rebuilding and re-identifying, like you're saying, the great unearthing. I love that, right? Like discovering, who are you? Who is America? Who does America want to be? Are we going to allow the Constitution as it was framed in the beginning to be who we are now, right? So yeah, I think that I feel like we've got a couple of years of rebuilding, and then I really feel like we're going to be more on that sort of milk and honey. Now, I would say this too, right? My spirit guides are always saying, this is a dualistic planet. This is not nirvana. Mm-hmm. Check your ticket. You're on the wrong planet. If you thought this was nirvana, this is always going to be up and down. It's always going to be a learning planet, but right. We will certainly have earned our long summer break, right? From all, like you're saying, these lessons. I think in a couple of years, we're going to look back and just be flattened by what we've been through, what we've lived through, what we've endured, because I don't think we can get a real sense for it right now. So yeah, I do think we're going to go into a time of better judgment, better guidance, and better representation of
yes.
of all people.
Agreed. Agreed. I think that I'm so glad you said that, because I think that's part of it too, is realizing our own personal power and our own personal part in all of this. And I wanted to ask you something. This is just, it's kind of an aside, but I did want to ask you about a specific event. So I did like a little kind of video about when the death of Navalny happened. And in that video, I talked about the fact that I felt like with this one action, this one, Putin action, it felt like we were here on this timeline and boom, now we're here. And for whatever reason, I felt like it's going to be tougher and harder, but it's going to be also much worse for Putin. And this is what I don't know what else was it, I could probably dig in even deeper, but that was the gist of it. And did you feel anything like that with that particular action? And what is your view on alternate timelines and alternate, dimensions and things like that?
Nice. Well, first of all, I'm not as deep as you. Now that you're talking, I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Because there wasn't, everybody had free will. Putin could have kept this guy alive. I mean, he could have been in a poor shape, right? But, and I feel like the outcome is the same. If he was alive, I saw him coming out and being some sort of impetus leader of the Russian people. And if he died, I saw him being a martyr for the Russian people. So no matter what direction Putin chose, this man was going to be very important to the people of Russia. And I think you're right. I'm getting chills, actually. That was a timeline, right? Like, so when Putin made that decision, it's sort of like you're at a crossroads, right? And Putin made this decision, well, you're going into this timeline, which I think is sort of like if you're going up a mountain and you don't use the switchbacks, you know what I mean? Like, it's a harder climb, but it's a quicker, you're going to just go straight there. So I think if Navalny had stayed alive longer, this whole process would have taken longer, but we still would have gotten there. So I think they chose faster but harder timeline. And don't you, now that I'm in that energy, don't you feel like that, obviously, that Navalny energy, that affects not only Putin, but I think it kind of reverberates around the world and it kind of affects all the timelines.
Absolutely. And that was kind of the interesting thing about it, because even though he's more of a negative figure and tends to move towards the negative all the time, Putin, but it does show the power of just one person and one decision. And I think we even see those little reverberations in our own life. When we make the decision to go out or stay in that day, we could go out and have these interactions with people, or we can stay in and not. And it's not that either one's wrong. It's just, it's a change. It puts you in a different wave or whatever it puts. That reverberation is going to be different because of that decision, right?
Absolutely. Now we're all terrified to make a decision.
I know what's happening. And it really is why we're here. I mean, you cannot go to brunch without making a decision. You have, we're making decisions all the time. So it's so clear that's what we're here to do. And also feel the impact or the consequences, or, what that means. Cause and effect, basically, right?
But, the spirit guides often say, and they've said it to me, for the love of God, Susan, they didn't say for the love of God, but their energy suggested that they might be a little impatient. Do something. If you just take action, any direction, we don't care. We can do something in reaction to your action. So if your ball is not in play,
right,
it's hard for them to help you. But if you make a decision, if you just say, I'm going to go to that party, or I'm going to put in that application, or I'm going to retire, then your spirit guides can say, oh, she made a decision. Now the energy is moving, right? When something is moving, other forces can help it move, right? But if your energy is stagnant and you're not doing anything, it's really hard for them to help you.
Oh, I love that. I've not thought of it that way. And I also wanted to let people know that you did a really great video on seeing auras. And I
Oh, thank you.
loved what I was going to come back to this, what you said about, and I'm going to be stealing it. So if it's not patented, I'm going to steal it.
Yes, please. If I could
No,
ever see an orb, I would be thrilled.
what
Her
you
orbs
said
are
about,
like the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. She's like, go through here. They're like, okay, you want me to do, like pirouettes? I'm like, can I get one orb? Is there an orb anywhere? Am my spirit guides out of orbs? Am I orbless? I mean, I feel really kind of less than, but anyway, it's okay. I'm going to
well,
listen.
yeah. Well, and I just thought it was so brilliant what you said about, and it was such a great way to, just a way to think of it is you said, when you look at someone and think about what their aura could be, ask yourself, what do I imagine their aura is? What do I imagine it is? And I thought that is brilliant because I always say to people that your guides pull from your imagination and your memory bank. That's where they pull from to get things to you. And for you, that was just, I was like, why didn't I think of that before? Of course, you're putting them right into that imaginative field and boom, there it comes.
You did say it. You've been saying it. You said it yourself.
Okay.
It's the language of spirit.
I guess it's not that way, because I think that the piece for me that was missing was being able to put people into their imagination, because I think that when you're in that other brain of, is this me? Is this them? It's really hard. But when you just say, okay, what do I imagine? I think orange. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was brilliant. So I want to go to the chat and give the chat any an opportunity to say hi or to say what they want to do to you and to any questions you might have. And I also wanted to tell people to please subscribe to Susan's channel, subscribe to this channel. It's one of the rare things that's still free in this world is subscribing to YouTube channels. So if you like it and you think I might like this, or it just has a good energy, please subscribe to her channel because she puts out, especially if you're into the political stuff that's going on and you really want answers, and you want to be kind of in the know and get that little bit of backup, that it's such a good channel, Susan.
Thank you.
Okay. And I told Susan Lynn, no reading, but if you want to talk about this, what is coming up that we need to know about, whether wise or spirit wise?
You know what, I've been trying to say this and I just don't think I don't feel like I've gotten it communicated correctly. But try again. Spiritual wise, the energy that I'm getting is to have faith. Even if there seems to be this message that if something doesn't go your way, even in your personal life, or even, on the larger stage, something doesn't go our way with 45 or justice, we all have this real visceral sense right now of justice, right? Where is the justice, right? So I feel like if something doesn't go the way you want it to go, and you feel like justice wasn't had, personally or in this larger arena, the message is that, non-physical, your spirit guide, source, whatever you want to call it, their viewpoint is much longer than ours. Nothing has been overlooked. No one is getting away with anything, right? So it goes back to that faith thing. Have faith. Really and truly have faith that everything is going to be okay, that we don't know the big picture, that just like you said, that you explained so beautifully with Navalny and with Putin. Putin had his free will and he changed a whole timeline based on that. But just because he changed the timeline doesn't mean he got away with anything.
Right.
So we have to have a little bit of a longer view. I mean, I understand we've had a lot of patience and we've been waiting a long time, but they would just reassure you that everything is really in hand. That's what they often say to me. Everything is in hand. Okay. Now, the other thing about weather, because weather is such a personal thing, I would suggest, listen to your gut. You know what I mean? I think we all do, But when we're running errands and we're late, or we're trying to get one more errand done before the storm hits, or, just listen to your gut. That's what they're telling me. If something says, no, you don't really need that, go on and go home, or
Mhm.
go to the basement or take shelter.
Right.
Listen to that energy. What would
Right.
you add to that?
No, I just exactly that, because our technology and the technology we have to be able to see storms or feel, get
Pretty
tremor
amazing.
things for earthquakes now, that it's all part of the big plan and the big picture and the gifts to earth to help us through stuff like that. So like you said, listen to it. And if you're in, like for us, we're in California, so we're in the big fire area, we're in the big earthquake area. So we have our to-go bags, we have stuff in our car, we have our flares, we have our, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That whatever's in your area, just be prepared for it. And listen, like you said, listen to what the news is saying or what direction you get, and follow it, listen to it. So somebody was saying for whatever reason, the link to your channel isn't working, but John of New came to the rescue and put up the correct link. So I will fix that when we're done. But but it is, if you put Susan Lynn, Lynn, into the search engine, it will come up, and it will have exactly what I put on our little thing for this video, that little circle with the rat. What is that? Is that like an infinity something, or what is that?
It's a I can't even think of the name of it. What are the things that you walk in that you literally walk around
Like a labyrinth?
a labyrinth? It's a labyrinth.
Oh,
But I
nice.
mean, it could be anything really. It's just a swirl. Half the time I just call it a swirl.
A
But
swirl.
my thought was a labyrinth. That's the thought that I had about it. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Well, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I know this went long, but I could talk to you for another hour, Susan.
Thank
So I
you.
just
Me
love that you
too.
came on. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to put your name up real quick so people can jot it down and go to your channel. And I should have had it up the whole time.
No, it's
But,
all good.
all
You're a
right. Well,
fantastic interviewer. Thank you so much, Kim. It was so amazing to be here. I hope everybody's subscribed to your channel and taking your classes. You're still offering classes, right?
yeah, well, I have all my recorded classes on my website, and yeah, everything of me is on the website, so you can go there. And Susan, do you have a website as well as your channel? And what is that?
SusanLynnMedium.com, just
Okay.
SusanLynnMedium.com. And it's funny because when I made my website, I didn't know I was psychic. So I just made my website Susan Lynn Medium. I mean, this is what I'm telling you guys, right? I just talk to dead people for a living. I didn't know I was psychic. You don't know you're psychic, you guys. I didn't know I was psychic when I opened my business. And then I'm doing readings. I'm like, man, I'm psychic,
That is amazing.
Every
That is
time I see my
amazing.
website, it reminds me that you didn't even know you were a psychic. So you guys,
That is
this is
crazy.
common. This is common. So yeah, and people, I'm live streaming this on my channel. So if you guys are watching this, please go to Kim's channel and check it out and subscribe and check out her recorded classes, because I have. They're very, very helpful. And if you guys haven't seen these orb videos, be prepared. I wanted to call you up and say, and I know that you're not this person, but I wanted to call you up and be like, I don't know the number or how to reach CNN, but I'm calling CNN. This stuff has got to be on CNN. This stuff has got to be on the nightly news. Like the whole world needs to be seeing this.
Well, and I
get a little enthusiastic
too, Susan. I feel like this is an untapped kind of weird thing, and I'm like, this is kind of miraculous in a way. So I'm just as I marvel all the time, just like you. So
well, I know you're not a person who seeks publicity. So I knew better, but I'm like, oh my God, she's like, if I don't seek the publicity, but I'm very enthusiastic, as you guys can tell. So if I could make orbs, if I had a relationship with orbs like you do, I'd be like, look, y'all, watch this. Watch this, y'all. Hold my beer. This orb is gonna, I mean, I would be obnoxious. I'd be a nut. What would happen? You guys would be like Susan and her orbs. But Kim is like so demure and quiet and calm, and she's like, I think this orb is gonna land on my hand. I'm like, it's gonna land on her hand. Look, y'all. I'm like telling people, I'm calling people on the phone. I sent you a link. So it's amazing. It's amazing. No, it's really
nice. You're too nice.
Are you kidding me? You're like an orb wrestler or an orb wrangler. I don't even know. Maybe that's bad. I don't know. You're an orb symphony leader. Maybe that's a better energy.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so thank you. Everyone's laughing at you in the chat. Thank you so much, Susan. You're so fun. And I'm so glad that you came on and agreed to come on. And everybody, I will see you the next time. I think I'm on with actually Debbie on Friday. So we'll see you,
nice.
talking about politics. So
oh my gosh.
We'll see you there. Oh, Orb Whisperer, everything Orb Whisperer.
Orb Whisperer, yes. You need t-shirts, girl.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody. See you on the other stream. We're going to do some lifting the energy for the U.S. As we go to the election. So we'll see you there. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.